Today we're going to talk about what sidechaining is, why it's important for mixing, and why you should start using it immediately in your songs. I'll also share with you 5 advanced sidechaining tricks that I use pretty much on every single song that I'm mixing. And while most of these tricks are going to work especially well for rock and metal, they will also work for any genre that is beat-driven like rap, hip-hop, or EDM. Hey there, friend. My name is Bobby Balow, and I'm the mixing and mastering engineer at Raytown Productions. This channel is dedicated to helping you make better sounding music without needing to buy expensive gear or unnecessary plugins. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button because I drop new videos every single week that's going to help you level up the quality of your music. So you may have heard of sidechaining, but maybe you don't completely understand what it means. The term sidechaining really just means that when we have a plugin or a compressor or something, that we're triggering the effect with another audio track. That's it. So instead of a compressor working on a vocal track, you can disconnect its input signal and feed in another separate audio track into the compressor, and then it will perform the compression based on that other track. Now, this kind of seems weird at first, but there's a lot of cases where it's beneficial to trigger compression or other plugins using a different audio track than the one that it's on. One of the most common sidechaining effects that I use is to put a compressor on my bass guitar that is sidechained directly to the kick drum on my drums. That way, anytime there's a kick drum hit, the sidechain reads that kick drum signal and compresses the bass guitar. This causes a ducking motion so that the bass gets out of the way of the kick drum. That way, you're building in a ton of space for both the kick drum and the bass guitar to live together. It's very challenging to get those two elements to work together in a typical mix. And what often happens is you get a blurry, fuzzy, boomy low end to your mix. But if you sidechain those two elements, you can create clarity because the compressor tells the bass guitar to shut up when it's going. Let me pull you into a session and show you exactly what I mean. This song is called Gold Walls, and it's by a band here in DC called Deer Spring. So if you like what you hear, I have links to all of their social media in the description. Go and check them out. They're a great, great band. Let me give you a little sample of the song that we're going to be working on. Cool, so this is going to be a big, powerful, punchy rock song. So let's make sure that we're building in clarity into our mixing process. So first up, let's add a compressor to our bass guitar so that we can sidechain it to the kick drum. Now, every DAW does this a little bit differently. I'm using Cubase 12, so I'll show you how I do it in this DAW. So we're going to go directly to the bass guitar track. Let's play it. Love that bass tone. All right, so let's add a compressor to this bass guitar track. So one that I use all the time is this C6 compressor by Waves. I have a link to this in the description if you want to check it out. Otherwise, you can use any other compressor that has a multiband functionality to it. That tends to be a little bit more surgical when we're doing this. And since this is an advanced sidechaining course, I figured let's do the most technical version of this as we can. We're going to just go ahead and bypass all these bands. And the cool part about C6 is they have these 2 different floating bands here. So we can put these bands anywhere we want to perform compression. So let's put that right where the power of that kick drum is, which in this case is about 60 hertz or 64 hertz. We can check that out by just going over to the kick drum track and looking to see what kind of frequency spectrum we have. Okay, so the majority of the low energy is coming right here out of about 63 hertz or so. So this is going to be close enough. Okay, because we want to punch a hole in the bass where the majority of the bass energy is on that kick drum. Now, to activate Wave C6 to accept a sidechain signal, we actually have to go down here. And they have this sidechain text, and you have to change it from internal to external. External meaning it's going to accept an outside signal to control the compression of this particular band. Okay, so let's set the gain to 0. We don't want to increase the gain at all. We just want to attenuate the sub frequencies when the kick drum hits. So then we can pull down the range here and set how much attenuation we want to perform when the kick drum hits. And I find that I like to do at least 8 decibels. So we're going to do -8. We want the attack to be very, very fast, because as soon as that kick drum hits, we want to start pulling the sub frequencies out of the bass. If you have a slow attack, it's going to take too long to suck out those frequencies, and so you're going to keep this blurry sub bass low end, and you don't want that. Okay, so let's get that as fast as we can get it to go. And then what I find is that the release setting actually sounds the best if you can get it to bounce and vibe with the beat or the tempo of the song. So this gets a little bit tricky, right? Because if you know the tempo of the song, like 154 beats per minute down here, we don't have a way to set this to like a 16th note or a quarter note or something like that. We just have this number value. I've actually made a cheat sheet for all of you. Here's what it looks like. It has literally almost every single tempo on it, and then all of the note lengths in milliseconds from whole note all the way to a 64th note. So we can just use this cheat sheet, look up the tempo of the song, which is 154 on this chart, and then we have the milliseconds for half note, quarter note, eighth note, 16th note, and so on. So we can tempo sync this compressor by just putting in this value. So 195 milliseconds here is going to be an eighth note. So let's start with that. So now this should be like bobbing up and down on an eighth note. And I find that if you have this tempo sync to the tempo of the song, you can do a lot more compression and it's less noticeable. Just kind of is breathing with the song, which is super important. Let's be a little bit aggressive with this because I really want you to hear the effect of this compressing the sub frequencies. We just need to feed in that sidechain signal. So we need to send now the kick drum signal to this sidechain input. And in Cubase 12, they've added a bunch of these features up here where you can activate the sidechain just by clicking this button. And then if you click this gear icon, you can add in what you want that sidechain input signal to be. So we want it to be the kick drum. So let's go to, we just type in kick, and we'll put the kick drum in here. Okay, so if everything's set up correctly and we play all of our tracks, we should see this compressing the bass now when the kick drum is being hit. Let's see. Okay, it's hard to see it because the threshold isn't set yet. So let's adjust the threshold so that it's now doing compression when that kick drum hits. Cool. So right here is a good spot. We don't want to pull this all the way down because we want it to just go in, compress the bass, and go back. Now, if you notice, it's definitely bobbing with music, but it's kind of slow for how fast this song is. So let's change this from an eighth note to a 16th note. Or you can do some quick math and just divide the 195 in half because that's going to be a 16th note. So that's about 97 milliseconds. Okay, so at this point, we are now ducking the kick drum bass from our bass guitar. So we're adding a lot of clarity for this kick drum punch to come through. So we can exaggerate this effect, or if you feel like it's not punchy enough, you can change this Q value and widen out the frequency range that it's pulling out the frequencies of. Okay, and if you want to hear what this is actually doing to the bass guitar, we have a really cool feature in Cubase that I don't think a lot of people know about, but it's something that I use all the time. And that is, let me show you. in this channel mixer, it's this L button. This L button lets us listen to this channel, and this allows us to hear what the effect of the sidechain is doing. If you just solo this bass channel, you won't hear it because you're not sending any of the kick drum signal to the sidechain because it's muted. But if you click the L for listen, it'll only play the audio of the bass guitar, but it'll still let all the sidechain information through on the back end. It's a really, really, really important feature, especially when you're trying to get into sidechaining. So let's take a listen. Let me be more aggressive with this. I want you to really focus on the low energy, and I'm going to make this even wider so you can kind of hear the ducking effect it's causing. So you can feel it's almost like an EDM song, right? You have this like pulsing of the low energy. Now, again, it feels a little bit slow to me, so let's go up to a 30-second note. So again, we can just use this cheat sheet, and we have 49 milliseconds is the 30-second note. Now, if it's still kind of slow, you can just adjust your threshold so that it just hits the very, very peak of that signal, okay? And that's going to make this respond a little bit faster. And that's what you should aim for when you're setting your threshold levels with sidechains. All right, cool. Let's bring in the kick drum now so you can hear and feel the punch that it's causing in the song. Now, if you have a subwoofer or headphones, you can really hear and feel the low energy. Now, let me get rid of this sidechain, and you'll feel that the kick drum loses the power now. Okay, so the sidechain helps just to clear up a lot of that space for you. And then because we have this set up on a multiband compressor, you can fine-tune our Q, and you can dial in exactly the amount of low energy you want to cut out of the bass guitar. So this is a really, really powerful technique. Okay, my second trick that I want to share with you is to sidechain your snare to your guitars. So let's set this up. Let's go to the guitar bus, and we can add in that multiband compressor again to our guitar bus. So all the guitars go into this group channel or bus, and now we're going to trigger some sidechain compression to the snare drum to pull out some of the power and the punch and the body of the snare out of the guitar tracks. And the reason we do that is because the guitars have a ton of this low energy to them. It's just the way that guitars sound, and it conflicts directly with the snare drum. And a lot of people don't talk about this, but it's so, so important to get a punchy snare in a mix. So let's come over to the bus. And you can see I have a whole bunch of sidechains already on my guitars. So let's go and add in another multiband compressor. So I'm going to use Wave C6. Again, to activate the sidechain in Cubase 12, we have to click this little sidechain button, and then we can select what our input source is. So we want it to be snare drum. Okay, so here's our snare drum. There it is. Let's bypass all of the bands that we're not actively using, and then set this back to 0, and then we can target in the body of the snare using this band. So the majority of my snares all have their power and punch around 200 hertz, so let's start there. Let's put it at 200. And we're going to widen out this Q to 1, just to kind of give it a little bit of space. And again, we know, based on our previous experience, that we probably want 30-second note release time. So if we look at our cheat sheet, which again you can download in the description, it's 49 milliseconds. And again, let's put the attack as fast as we can because we want it to pull out the power of those guitars so that the snare drum has that punch, and then release it back to the guitars. Okay, and one final thing is we have to make sure that we activate our sidechain in the plugin by clicking on this internal button and changing it to external. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to try to look at the guitar bus as the input source. We have to click this over to external. Okay, if you're not using Cubase 12, you won't have this little gear icon to select your input source. What you have to do in that case is actually go to the channel where you want to send the sidechain to. So in that case, that's our snare. And you have to go to the sends drop-down menu and then send this signal to that compressor. Okay, so you can go to sidechains under send, and you just have to find where it is. So we have guitar all bus, and it's the sidechain signal. So then we activate the sidechain here. Now we're sending the signal to our sidechain. Okay. So that's how you do it if you don't have Cubase 12. Okay, so let's go back to our guitar bus, and we're going to solo it so we can hear the guitars. So let's listen to this channel using the same trick we did before. So we're going to come here to the mixing console and click the L so we can listen to this channel. We can hear what the sidechain signal is doing to our guitar bus now. Let's do it. Okay, so you see this is pulsing. We have to set our threshold, and then we also need to adjust our range and pull that down. There we go. Okay, so let's get to a part where there's a bunch of guitars playing. All right, so I think we need to make this even faster. Let's do it a 64th note, which is about 25 milliseconds. Make it nice and fast, and let's dial this in. And I'm going to widen out this cue so you can really hear the ducking effect that this is causing when you have the snare drum hitting. So it's like a rubber band almost, right? It's kind of bouncy now with the guitars. And that's going to dig a nice hole in the mix for our snare drum to come in and then add this massive punch to the track. So let me take it off of the listen mode down here. And let's leave that listen mode on and let's bring in the snare drum again. So we'll come over here to our drums and let's bring in the drum snare. So now I'll bypass this sidechain in and out so you can hear how much more punchy the snare drum will now sound. Okay, let's bypass this. Let's go to a place where the guitars are really dense. Okay, this is without. With. If you're listening very carefully, you might need to rewind this a few times to hear this. But listen to the impact of the low frequency of the snare, the body, the punch. It is so much more obvious when we have this sidechaining in than when we don't have it in. And that is the secret to getting a super punchy snare tucked into a dense mix with guitars. All right, my third advanced sidechaining trick for you today is to sidechain the vocals also to the guitars. And if you noticed, I had a few compressors on my guitar bus, and that's for this exact reason. Okay, so back on the guitar bus, let's add another compressor. So we're going to put C6 back on this sidechain version. To activate the sidechain, I'm going to bypass this like normal. And actually, we're not going to bypass the second band. We're going to actually use it. So I made a preset. So it actually looks like this. So I actually use 3 different bands. I have a band at 380 hertz about, this band between 92 and about 300 hertz, which is this green band right here. And then I also have another band around 800 hertz. And if you notice, the lower frequency one, the one that has the most range, meaning it can reduce the most signal, has the fastest attack setting. All these other ones that I'm using, which is this one and this band, have an attack of about 16 milliseconds. And the reason why I'm doing that is sometimes if you start attenuating too much signal out of the guitars, you can hear it in the mix. And having this main frequency where you lose the most clarity out of the voice be the fastest attack, and then having these other ones be a little bit slower, help to kind of hide the transition of this compressor pulling out those frequencies, okay? So let's set this up the same way we always do. We're gonna add a sidechain signal. Again, we're on the guitar bus, so this time we wanna have the vocals be the input signal for this compressor. So when the vocals are present, it's gonna pull out some of these frequencies from the guitar bus, add a little bit more clarity to our vocals, okay? So there we go. We should be set up and ready to go. Let's hit play. So you can see now the vocals are feeding this compressor and we're getting some attenuation. I think this is probably a little bit aggressive, but what we can do, again, is use that listen trick. So let's pull up our mix window. Okay, click the listen on the guitar bus. This is going to let all the tracks play, and then we can fine-tune this threshold in the range so that it doesn't sound like the guitars are really pumping that much. We want it to pull some frequencies out, but we don't want it to be audible. So let's play with this and get it dialed in. A fictional horizon and reaching to the zenith for the truth. Let's go to the chorus. Okay, this is sounding pretty good. I don't notice the guitars pumping and breathing in and out. Let's not listen to the vocal. Let's just listen to the guitar bus to see if we can hear the movement. So you can hear it. It's pretty obvious. But this song is just so dense. I think we can get away with this much compression. So let's play it back. We'll deactivate the listens and play this song back, and then I'm going to bypass again this sidechain, and let's see if we can hear the clarity the chorus is going to have when this is plugged in, because it's ducking out all those frequencies that you really need the vocals to have for us to understand what the lyrics are. It's amazing because it sounds like we did something to the vocal, but we didn't. We're doing everything to the guitars. It's an amazing trick. This is going to add so much clarity to your mixes, I promise you. All right, so sidechaining trick number 4. What we're going to do is sidechain the lead guitar for like a guitar solo or just something that you want to bring emphasis to. Sidechain that right to your rhythm guitar bus. This way, when the lead guitar comes in, we can carve out and compress some of the frequencies in the rhythm guitars so that our lead has more of a presence in the mix. Check this out. So we have the guitar rhythm bus that sounds like this. And then we have a bunch of leads that are going on top of that. We're going to go over to our guitar rhythm bus that has those guitars. Okay, and we're going to put on, you guessed it, wave C6. Load this up, activate the sidechain, and then we're going to feed this with that lead, the guitar leads. Okay. Here's a guitar lead signal. Okay. Again, we're going to activate these bands. And then we're going to bypass all the ones we're not using. Okay. Let's set a range to maybe like minus 12 dB or so. Fast attack, remember we want to get it in and get out. And I'm going to set this to a really quick release, 25 milliseconds, which is a 64th note for this tempo. Based on this cheat sheet, baby. Go and download it. I'm telling you. Okay, so now to check the signal, we have to unmute our lead channel. Okay, so there's our input signal for the lead. Now, a trick that I like to do to find out where to set the frequency to add the most clarity to that lead is to then take this plugin and just boost these frequencies and sweep around by clicking on this frequency knob and moving this left and right and find the spot where it's really, really, really hard to hear the lead, okay? That's the spot you're gonna want to do the side chaining. Like, I can't hear crap right here. So right here is where we probably want to put it. So let's put that gain back to 0. And now all those muddy frequencies are going to be pulled out when that lead's going. Just like that. So you can hear it, like, it's instant clarity, right? Let me bypass this back and forth so you can hear how much more clear that lead is when we have this side chain. And if that's not enough for you, it's as easy as activating another one of these bands and doing the exact same procedure to add more clarity to that lead. So let's do that. Let's try to find a spot where this sounds really muffled again as well. It's like right around here. So let's set that to 0, set our range, pull this down. And we can open this cue up and just carve out some more frequencies. Okay, fast attack. Let's do a quick release as well. 25 milliseconds. Here we go. Okay, without it. I hope you can hear that. It's like night and day. Okay, the final of my 5 advanced sidechaining tricks that I use in pretty much every single mix is to sidechain the vocal to a compressor that is on a reverb or a delay bus. Why would we want to do that? Because it does this magical thing where you can have a large delay or a large reverb, so it sounds way too loud and echoey and reverb and lush. And then anytime the vocal is present, it basically acts like as a volume knob and turns down the reverb for you automatically. And then when the vocal's not there, then it turns the reverb up. And you can adjust how fast and how slow the reverb or delay comes back by carefully dialing in the release knob. And this is the one thing that you're really going to want to make sure you get it tempo synced. So make sure you grab that guide in the description. But let me show you how to set this up. So back in our session, let's go to the effects right here. So I have all of the reverbs on auxiliary buses or send effects. Okay, so if we go, you can see I have like 2, 3, 4 different delays. I have hall reverbs, plate reverbs. I have a room reverb. So let me play these all back at the same time so you can hear how much the vocal sound comes through these effects. Right? There's a lot going there, okay? So to make this simple, I'm just going to route all of these effects to a group channel. And then that's going to then go to the FX bus that I have. So if we just solo this, you'll hear what I'm talking about. Okay, and there's some guitar, but that's okay. This is just for demonstration purpose. So in this case, I find that the multiband compression is not the best way to go about this. We literally want to like turn the volume down and bring it back up. So in this case, I'll use something like Wave C1. There's not multiple bands on this, so it's literally just going to compress the signal and return it back. Okay, so again, let's set up our sidechain by activating it. And then we're going to feed this by the vocal bus. Okay, now this way, anytime the vocals are there, it's going to compress the delay and reverb signal, and then when the vocals aren't there, it's going to turn the volume back up for us. Okay, so we can do really, really cool effects. We have a lot of reverb and a lot of delay, and then when the vocals are there, it's very clear, and then when there's space, they kind of swell in and add this atmosphere that just really helps to make a vocal sound special. Okay, so let's start by, let's do a 2-to-1 ratio, fast attack again, and then let's set the release to be something a little bit longer. So maybe a quarter note, and if I use this cheat sheet, quarter note is 390 milliseconds. This is where that listen feature is so clutch because it's really hard to hear the effect of sidechaining on delays and all this other stuff unless you use this listen feature. Okay, so let's hit play, and then you'll hear what the delays and reverbs are doing when they're sidechained to this compressor. So let's exaggerate this a little bit so you can really hear it. So you can hear how like the reverbs are kind of growing and pulsing with the music, right? So listen to the last phrase, okay? So when we have a vocal that ends and there's no more vocals after it, it's going to release the volume back to its full level, and you're going to get this like beautiful tail on the vocal. So let me show you. So you see how it kind of swelled into that next part? Let me play it in context so you can hear what it's doing. And I'm just going to dial this back a little bit so it's not so obvious with all the swelling of the reverbs and delays, but this can add so much clarity to a vocal. So I find that if you're doing anywhere about 4 or less dB of gain reduction on the sidechain, gives it a really nice effect. It's very smooth sounding. So now let me bypass this on and off so you can hear what it does to the clarity of the vocal. And I want you to listen to how noticeable the delays and reverbs are when we don't have the sidechain in or when this compressor is bypassed, and then how nice the vocals sound when we activate this compressor on that sidechain to lower the level of the reverb and delay when the vocals are there, and then to raise it up when they're not. And it's almost magical. Check this out. Growing up, high below, raining down from the sky above. You can hear how those echoes are distracting, right? When we have this bypass. Let's put it back in and listen to how smooth the echoes are now. Growing up, high below, it's like an instant echo smoothing tool. So question for you, have you heard or do you currently use any of these tricks in your mixes? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm sure I missed some. And if you do something similar or use a different tool to do it, leave me a comment below. And I also want to remind you to go to the description, grab your free downloadable cheat sheet for the tempo timings. You're going to need that as a reference if you want to tempo sync your sidechains to your song, which I highly, highly recommend, especially if you're doing that last trick with the vocal delay and reverb and stuff. If you stayed with me all the way to the end, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and tell YouTube that this video is helpful. And I would really appreciate it if you would share this video with some of your friends or post it on social media groups like Facebook or Reddit. That helps to get the word out and share some of my deepest mixing secrets with everybody else. With that, I want to thank you again so much for your time and attention today, and I hope to see you in another video.